In this video, I'm going to be taking a look at Into the Weird and Wild for my next adventure. This is a collection of additional rules and wilderness setting information that can be used with any rule system. And I'm going to be using Knave, which is a rules light OSR rule set that is very easy for gameplay. And I'm also going to be showing off a book that I made just for this upcoming adventure. And what this is are PDF printouts of the information that I'll be using from both books. And I bound it all together and added some blank pages and hex pages and kind of created my own journal for this adventure. So let's get into this. Welcome to Solitary RPG. Into the Weird and Wild is a collection of rules that you can bolt on to any rule system that you are playing. And I really like what this book has to offer. So if we open it up, start digging through it, what we'll see are just some different rules that you can use for any type of game that you're playing. I got some basic rules about a gold exchange, getting exhausted by not eating, not sleeping, surviving the night, and things that can happen to you in the night. The main rule that I will be using is the hunt, because for my upcoming adventure, what I want to do is my PC is going to go hunting in the wilderness, and I'll be using primarily everything from this book to generate that wilderness, and he's going to be out hunting. The one thing I am going to do, because I'm only running a single PC, but he's going to have a couple companion dogs with him, some hunting dogs, to help with some of the more challenging things that can happen, especially with surviving the night. Basically an alarm or an alert system to help in case something happens at night, or to maybe help with some of the tracking of wild animals that they'll be hunting for. It's something I wanted to try, where instead of running 3 PCs and trying to roleplay with 3 different characters, I figured maybe some hunting companions, some hunting dogs would make it a little bit easier, because they're just going to add some benefits during combat and during tracking and things of that nature, maybe rolling at advantage with some of those rolls. So we'll see how that works out. I'm still kind of drafting everything out and trying to figure out how everything's going to work. Also, you got like cleaning the body, moon phases, so different things can happen with the different moon phases, which I think is a really neat rule. Becoming lost, again, this is one of those things where maybe having the hunting dogs with him might make becoming lost not as big of a deal. The dogs will be able to help out. You got some madness rules. Again, I won't be using the madness rules, and that's what I like about this book itself, is you just decide what you want to use in your game. All I'm looking to create is maybe just a simple adventure starter. Like my PC goes out in the woods where you start rolling some dice, and maybe then it generates into a bigger story. And that's where I'm at with it. And then we get into the creatures, the weird and wild creatures that you can run into. Each creature has a 2-page spread. Some have a larger spread. The book does come with some nice ribbons. There's some basic stats. There's an armor class, hit dice, hit points, their move, damage, basic information, special things that can happen, things that you can find if you kill the creature. It's kind of like a D100 dungeons where you go out looking for body parts. You could kind of do the same thing here, go out looking for body parts. kind of the hit dice and hit points kind of is more reflective of using a D&D type system. One of the things I don't necessarily like about bookmarks is sometimes they get in the way. But there's a lot of different creatures, and it's all in alphabetical order. And some of these, well, this is the only one I think is missing a picture. I don't know necessarily why, but these creatures, those are just creepy. This is like a Morborg creature with the heads. But the armor classes, they all have an armor class, and some of the armor class is more representative that they're not necessarily wearing leather armor, but they're a little bit harder to hit because they're birds, and they're not going to be easy to hit because they're a smaller target. So I think they used the leather armor class because that would add to the roll that you would use to hit them. So it just kind of goes on and on. There's nice art, and there's just lots of different creatures in here. I love this stag, this devil stag. I think I'm going to go hunting for the royal fox for my first adventure. This would be a good little hunting experience using a couple pack, hunting dogs, and we can go out looking for the royal fox and just have a little bit of an adventure in the weird wilderness. But yes, it has a lot of creatures, and that's the majority of the book, is all of the different creatures that you can run into in the Wyrd and Wild. And I'm just going to kind of show you how much of the section of the book is that. So it's about half. This section of the book is going to get into factions, which again, kind of are creatures. They're people you can run into in the Wyrd and Wild, kind of tribes or cults that live in the Wyrd and Wild. And then you get into some artifacts, so things you can find. And then you get into magic, so you got your own little magic that you can... I'm assuming most of this magic is going to be used on you. But if you're playing a magic caster, if you wanted to maybe incorporate some of these spells. But here's the next big piece, and that is generating the dungeon. It's more of generating a wilderness. You're going to use a dice drop system where you're going to drop dice on a hex, which I've made a custom dice tray for this that I'll get to use. And depending on the numbers that pop up, you start populating the space with different things off of the charts, and you create pathways, and you really just start populating everything, and you'll end up with something like this, where the numbers all represent spots, and then all the lines represents trails. The getting lost rule basically is if you go off the trail for so long, you can get lost. That's where I'm hoping the hunting dogs will help with that. So I'm really intrigued on this system, and I can't wait to populate something and giving it a try in gameplay. So this is what I'll be using. Then you got floral, you got some different things that you can run into. There's also traps, hazards and traps. So all these things are going to be used to populate my adventure area. Bunch of charts in the back here. And then you got 100 locations. So if you want, you can roll up different locations. You got a little blurb about them and about the location and everything like that. And then at the very end, you got, this is a quick reference chart. And then this would be an additional character supplement that you would use with whatever rule system you're playing for your character sheet. And this represents your different, your food and your water and your shelter and exhaustion and madness and all the things that are specific with these bolt-on rules into your rules system. And I'm going to be using Knave as my rules system. This is an OSR light rules system. There's not much to it. Most of the rules are about generating your character, the tools and things that you can use, And then you have 1, 2, 3, 4 pages of rules. 5 pages of rules, but most of it's your spells. So there's not much to this rules system, and that's why I want to use it. I do like the rules light systems for solo adventuring because it just makes it a little bit easier. It has a lot more flexibility for me to choose ability rolls when I'm encountering things. So that's the rule system that I'm going to be using. Now, when I purchased these, I got the PDF of these rules, and because, like in Knave, I'm only using the 5 pages of rules. The character creation portion, once I've created my character, I don't need that information anymore. And into the Wyrd and Wild, I'm not using all of the rules. Some of the rules aren't going to be used, and I don't need access to all of the creatures on a regular basis. Just when I encounter one, I'll need access to that information. So one of my new obsessions has become bookbinding, making my own books. And what I did is, this was a practice book, Hellfire Club. Just got, Stranger Things season just ended. Hellfire Club was just awesome. So I made this book, and I bind it, it's all sewn bound, and folded all the paper, and learned a lot about grain direction in paper, which is something I never really knew that much about. Now I do. I think I know too much about it. Took the chart, just got that right there up front, but it'll jump right into just the core rules of Knave in the book, in the magic, and then it's going to get into just the different rules that I'll be using from Into the Wyrd and Wild on a regular basis. Like, I will need to know about the exhaustion rules. I'll be referring to that on a regular basis in this game. Surviving the night. Again, things I'll be doing on a regular basis. Those are the rules I wanted to have easy access to in, I guess we'll just say this is my gaming journal, Becoming Lost, and then all of the charts that were in the book, I have them accessible to me. And then the last one was generating the dungeon. Again, this is stuff I will need on a regular basis when I'm playing the game. And then I went into the character sheet. So Knave has a simple character sheet. And then I also have the Into the Wyrd and Wild sheet here, so I can track that information. And then after that, it just goes into blank pages for writing. And then I have some hex pages for generating my dungeon. Then this is the back spread that I just have access to it. I'll probably print these out and have them just available for description information, or I'll just end up writing it on a blank piece of paper. But yeah, so I kind of created my own journal. This is a piece of fighting fantasy art. Just had it on my computer. I saved it at one point, and I just printed it out and glued it to the hardback book that I created. So this was just fun, a fun little project, something I started doing recently. But this is just my starting point. This is what I'll be working on over the next couple weeks. So I'll be doing some additional videos once I start diving into the rules. First thing I do is I've got my concepts down. I know what rules I want to use. I've got some setting information that I want to use. I've got a concept with the hunting dogs with my PC. So what we'll do now is we'll start exploring taking these rules and these rules, bolting them all together. We'll get into some combats, just some made-up combats where I'll just run into something and fight with it just to see how everything works, because I've got to be able to take the stats that are provided here with the information in Knave to get me a balanced character. It should be relatively simple, but I will dive into that more later. And then I also want to really get into the dungeon generation portion of the rules and see how my dice tray works and just see how everything works. So we can call this prep, game prep, and I'll be sharing more videos as I go. Anyways, thank you for watching and have a great day.